text came at 9:03 a.m., and I stared at it for a solid 10 minutes, thinking it had to be a mistake. We've decided Tyler will take over the bakery. Effective immediately. That was it. No warning, no conversation, just a single message from my father. My stomach sank, and for a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I'd spent my entire adult life building up our family bakery. I knew every supplier, every recipe, every customer by name. I'd turned a small, struggling shop into a thriving chain across the city. And yet, somehow, in the blink of an eye, I was out of my own family's business, out of the life I had worked toward since I was 12. And the reason? My younger brother Tyler, who spent more time playing video games than in the kitchen. Tyler, who once accidentally left an oven on and almost burned the store down. Tyler, who couldn't tell a baguette from a loaf of sandwich bread. And somehow my parents thought he was the better choice. I tried calling my mom. Went straight to voicemail. My dad? We need fresh ideas. Tyler has them. That was it. No acknowledgement of my years of dedication. No gratitude. Just a cold, corporate-style dismissal from the people who were supposed to support me unconditionally. I walked out of the bakery that morning and passed the familiar smell of bread and butter, the scent I had loved since childhood. Every loaf, every pastry, it had been mine, and now it wasn't. I felt like I had been erased from my own life. By that afternoon, I was sitting across from Alex, my best friend since high school. Alex listened as I fumed, pacing the small coffee shop, my hands trembling around the cup. "This isn't just unfair. It's insane," Alex said. "You built that business. You didn't inherit it, you earned it. If your family doesn't see that, then maybe it's time you show them what they've lost." And that's when the idea hit me. I didn't just want to start a bakery. I wanted to start one that could beat theirs at every turn. I wanted to prove to my parents, to Tyler, to everyone in that town, that loyalty and hard work matter more than nepotism. But I had no idea that doing so would cost me friendships, shake the family to its core, and lead to a betrayal I would never forget. The days after that text were a blur. Every morning I passed the bakery where I had spent half my life, but I wasn't allowed in. My parents had changed the locks. Tyler was already in charge, learning the register and giving orders to the same employees who had once respected me. The sight of him behind the counter, smiling and nodding like he belonged there, made my stomach churn. I tried to reason with my mom first. I called, I texted, I even sent an email outlining everything I had done to grow the business. Her responses were short, polite but cold. "We appreciate your contributions, but the decision is final. Tyler brings a fresh perspective." Fresh perspective? Tyler couldn't even balance the petty cash without mistakes. And yet, my parents insisted he was the visionary. Even the staff was divided. Some were loyal to me, whispering encouragement in the back room, offering secret support. Others sided with Tyler, afraid of rocking the boat. I realized then that this wasn't just about me versus my brother. It was about survival in a company that had become a battlefield overnight. I had to think fast. I couldn't just sit around and watch everything I had built crumble. So I started planning quietly, outside of their sight. I had savings, experience, and, more importantly, a network of loyal suppliers and customers who still trusted me. I began sketching ideas for my own bakery, one that could rival theirs in quality, innovation, and reputation. But I also knew I had to play it smart. Tyler wasn't competent, but he had my parents' support, and they were not going to back down easily. Meanwhile, family dinners became unbearable. My parents acted as if nothing had changed, but the tension was palpable. Tyler would smile proudly at every little accomplishment, unaware, or perhaps indifferent, to the damage he had caused. My mom tried to act neutral, but I could see the guilt flicker in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking. My dad? He was distant, cold, and resolute, as if he had already erased me from the family narrative entirely. One evening, I ran into Alex at the park, pacing angrily. "You can't just let them steamroll you," Alex said. "You know what they're doing is unfair. You've earned your place. If you sit quietly, they'll forget what you built." I nodded, But the truth was, I wasn't sure what the right move was. Starting my own bakery could be a war, could destroy family relationships beyond repair. But staying silent, that wasn't an option either. And just when I thought I had a plan forming, the first betrayal hit. One of my trusted employees, someone I had trained personally, walked out and told Tyler every secret I had confided in them, every strategy one had used to grow the business. It felt like a knife in my back, and suddenly, the stakes weren't just high, they were personal. By the end of that week, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't going to be a simple business rivalry. This was war, family war, and in that war there were no rules. By the time I started putting together a plan for my own bakery, I knew I couldn't do it alone. That's when Alex stepped in fully, not just as a friend, but as a business partner in spirit. Alex had always been good with numbers, social media, and creative ideas, and we talked about side projects in college that never went anywhere. Now, those what-ifs suddenly mattered more than ever. "I can help you," Alex said over a late-night coffee in the dimly lit cafe where we often met. "We can start small. Pop-up events, online orders, even catering. Nobody's going to notice at first, and you'll have time to build your brand before your family even realizes what's happening." I nodded, but there was a gnawing feeling in my gut. Starting a bakery in the same city as my parents' chain? That could backfire. Worse, it could make things irreparably toxic at family gatherings, if I even still attended them. But the thought of letting Tyler, my incompetent brother, run the business I had built made my hands shake with anger. We began quietly scouting locations. We talked to suppliers Alex trusted, and I reached out to a few old employees who were loyal to me. But the moment I thought I had a safe network, I realized something crucial. Not everyone could be trusted. Some staff, fearing my parents' wrath, reported our plans to Tyler almost immediately. It was like planting seeds and having the other side uproot them before they could grow. Then came the moral dilemma I didn't anticipate. One of my friends, a talented pastry chef named Jamie, offered to join the new bakery, but only if I agreed to steal some recipes directly from my parents' kitchen. Jamie insisted it wasn't wrong, just business. I froze. These recipes were part of my legacy, yes, but were they mine to take? Or would that make me the villain in this story? "I can't," I said finally, my voice trembling. "If I do that, I become the thing I hate. I'm not Tyler. I'm not going to cheat my way in." Jamie's face twisted, a mix of disbelief and frustration. "You'll never succeed without taking risks," Jamie snapped, storming out. That night, Alex and I sat in silence, realizing the truth. We could build our bakery honestly, but we'd have to be smarter, faster, and stronger than Tyler and my parents combined. And we were already behind. They had the established brand, the loyal customers, and my family's blind trust. We had creativity, determination, and the element of surprise, but even that might not be enough. By the next morning, I knew one thing for certain. Starting a business against your own family wasn't just risky. It was dangerous. And as I looked at my phone, I noticed a text from Tyler that made my blood run cold. "Heard some of our old staff are talking. Don't waste your energy. You'll fail." It wasn't a warning. It was a threat. And for the first time, I realized that in this war, friends and enemies weren't always who you thought they were. The first few weeks of planning our bakery felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon. Every step forward, every decision, had the potential to either launch us or send us plummeting. Alex and I worked tirelessly, testing recipes, negotiating with suppliers, scouting locations that weren't too close to my parents' shops, yet accessible enough to attract their customers. But the closer we got to opening, the more I realized just how deep the family conflict ran. Employees who had once been loyal to me were caught in the middle. Some whispered words of support, but others were terrified of losing their jobs under Tyler's watch. A few even started spreading rumors, painting me as bitter and vengeful. I knew I had to keep my temper in check, or I'd play right into their narrative. But it wasn't easy. Every time I drove past my parents' stores, I felt the sting of betrayal fresh all over again. Then came the first public challenge. A local food critic, who had reviewed my parents' bakery positively for years, posted a review mentioning a lack of innovation and hinting at internal conflict. The article was subtle, but everyone in town noticed. Tyler and my parents were rattled, and the employees whispered excitedly about my potential comeback. But it wasn't just external pressure, it was internal. At home, my parents continued to act like nothing had changed. My mom invited me over for dinner, smiling politely, but I could feel the tension radiating off her. My dad barely looked at me, speaking only in clipped sentences. Tyler, of course, was smug, flashing that irritatingly self-satisfied grin every time I arrived. Felt like a trap, like they wanted me to snap. I had to remind myself. The war wasn't over family dinners. It was in the bakery, in the marketplace, and in the court of public opinion. Alex and I began to see just how ruthless this battle would be. A supplier I trusted suddenly raised prices, citing unforeseen complications. But I suspected Tyler's team had made a call behind my back. A minor leak in the plumbing of our test kitchen caused delays, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was sabotaging us. Every obstacle felt orchestrated, and every step forward came with a cost. By the end of that month, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about a business or even a family feud. It was about power, loyalty, and reputation. I had to be smarter than Tyler, faster than my parents, and more cunning than anyone else involved. Otherwise, all my plans and everything I had worked for would crumble before I even had a chance to open my doors. The cracks in the empire were widening, and I knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning. I hadn't expected them so soon, and for a moment, I thought I might finally have a chance to step back from all the chaos. But that hope vanished the instant I saw the fine print. The division of assets included the bakery chain. My parents weren't just separating emotionally, they were splitting the company in ways that directly affected Tyler's control and, indirectly, my own potential comeback. I spent the next few days watching from the sidelines as lawyers and accountants dug through the finances. My mom argued for a clean split, but my dad insisted on keeping control over key locations and revenue streams. Tyler, clueless as always, was swept along with my father's side, grinning as if he had won some invisible contest. And I was left to watch the whole family unravel, powerless to influence anything legally. At the same time, my own project was gaining traction. Alex and I had secured a small space downtown, and word of mouth from loyal customers was starting to generate buzz. But the closer we got to opening, the more I realized that the divorce had opened a dangerous new front. My parents' employees, stressed by uncertainty and worried about the future, were leaking information about our plans to Tyler. I had thought my biggest challenges were logistical, suppliers, recipes, permits, but now it was personal. Even friends started to pull away. Jamie, the pastry chef who had stormed off weeks ago, returned with a proposal that made my stomach twist. "I'll join you, but I need a cut of the profits from the start, and I want access to some of the original recipes. Otherwise, I walk." The betrayal stung, but I stood firm. I couldn't compromise my principles, even if it meant losing a crucial ally. Meanwhile, family interactions became unbearable. I had to attend a dinner at my mother's new apartment. The atmosphere was tense. My dad barely spoke. Tyler bragged about new innovations that weren't even real, and my mom tried to maintain civility. Every glance, every word, carried the weight of unspoken accusations. And through it all, I realized something I hadn't faced before. I wasn't just fighting for a business. I was fighting for my dignity, my sense of self, and a place in the very family that had cast me aside. By the time I left that night, I knew that the coming months would test me in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Every decision I made, every ally I gained or lost, would carry consequences that went beyond profit margins. The war for the bakery wasn't just a business rivalry anymore. It was a battlefield of loyalty, betrayal, and survival. And deep down, I had to ask myself the question that would haunt me for weeks. Was I crossing a line by even trying to compete? Or were my parents and Tyler the real villains in this story? Just when I thought I had a handle on the chaos, I discovered that the family business was far more tangled than I had ever imagined. One late night, while reviewing some old contracts and invoices Alex had dug up for me, I found discrepancies, Hundreds of dollars here, thousands there. That didn't make sense. At first, I assumed clerical errors, but the patterns were too deliberate. Tyler hadn't been this careless. My parents had been hiding debts, redirecting funds, and quietly making deals with suppliers that undermined their own employees. I confronted Alex. "Are you sure?" I asked, staring at the spreadsheets. "This could be huge." Alex nodded grimly. "Someone's been cooking the books. And it's not Tyler. Look at the timestamps, these entries go back years. Your parents have been lying to everyone, maybe even themselves." The realization hit me like a punch. The bakery I had loved, the empire I had helped build, was rotting from the inside. My parents' perfect chain was riddled with financial instability, hidden debts, and mismanaged contracts. Tyler, I realized, had been thrust into the role of manager without ever knowing the real dangers. And worse, my parents had deliberately kept me in the dark. Perhaps because they didn't trust me, or maybe because they thought I'd leave one day anyway. But the worst revelation came when I checked with a former employee who had recently left the company. "They've been siphoning profits to cover personal expenses," she said quietly. "Trips, renovations, even loans for friends. They're running on fumes, and Tyler doesn't even realize it yet." It was devastating. I had assumed my parents' motives were simple: protect the company, secure a future for Tyler. But now it was clear. It had been about control, appearances, and keeping their hands in every pie, literally and figuratively. Every dismissive comment, every forced grin at family gatherings, suddenly carried a deeper weight. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had been manipulating the entire narrative for years. Alex and I spent the night strategizing. We had a choice: exploit these weaknesses or rise above them. The moral dilemma was crushing. I could use the information to gain an upper hand, perhaps even sabotage the business legally. But would that make me no better than them? Could I fight with honor, or was honor a luxury in a battle like this? By dawn, we had a plan. We would focus on building our bakery honestly, relying on skill, reputation, and creativity rather than deceit. But one thing was undeniable. The playing field had shifted. My parents weren't just adversaries. They were flawed, secretive, and unpredictable. Tyler was a pawn, and the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. The real war was hidden beneath layers of lies. And I realized that even with the best intentions, navigating a family business meant one thing: trust was a luxury, and betrayal lurked in every corner. By the time the grand opening of our new bakery was just weeks away, the pressure had become unbearable. Every day felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. Tyler was now fully in charge at my parents' bakery, blissfully unaware, or perhaps intentionally oblivious, to the financial cracks we had uncovered. My parents acted indifferent, but I could sense their tension whenever our paths crossed. Then came the ultimatum. My father sent me a text that morning: "Stop what you're doing. It's not worth the trouble. You risk everything for a dream you won't achieve." It was condescending, dismissive, but it hit harder than any insult. They weren't asking, they were threatening. And suddenly I felt torn. Part of me wanted to obey, to step back, avoid further conflict, and preserve whatever relationship I had left with them. But another part, the part that had bled for this business, refused to back down. That same evening, Alex confronted me. "You've got two choices," Alex said, leaning across our cramped workspace. "You can back down and keep the peace, or you can fight, even if it means burning bridges you can never rebuild." I ran my hands through my hair, feeling the weight of every decision. Fighting meant risking family loyalty, public opinion, even friendships. Backing down meant betraying myself. And then Tyler showed up at our pop-up test kitchen, unannounced. His grin was infuriating. "I hear you're trying to start something interesting," he said, crossing his arms. "Don't get your hopes up." That casual threat made my blood boil, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. Alex whispered, "Play it cool. Don't give him the satisfaction." I nodded, but inside, a storm raged. Later that night, I reviewed the financial discrepancies again. If I acted carefully, I could leverage the truth about my parents' hidden debts to gain a strategic advantage. without breaking the law or resorting to sabotage. But doing so would expose family secrets, humiliate Tyler, and potentially destroy relationships permanently. The thought made my stomach churn. For the first time, I truly understood that in this battle, the enemy wasn't just Tyler or even my parents. It was the entire system of deception, entitlement, and betrayal that had governed our family for decades. Every choice carried consequences, and the line between right and wrong blurred with every passing hour. By midnight, I had made my decision. I would fight, not with lies, not with sabotage, but with strategy, skill, and integrity. But I knew that this choice marked a turning point. After this, nothing would ever be the same. Family dinners, casual visits, even friendships. They would all be casualties in the war for the bakery I had built, and for the respect I had earned. And somewhere deep inside, I realized that winning wouldn't just be about business. It would be about proving, once and for all, who I truly was. It all came to a head one Friday afternoon. I had scheduled a meeting at my parents' main bakery under the guise of checking in. I didn't expect to leave unscathed or sane. Tyler was behind the counter, smirking as always, and my parents looked, well, wary, as if they could sense the storm brewing. I started calmly, outlining some logistical concerns about suppliers and local regulations. But when I subtly hinted at the financial discrepancies I'd uncovered, the hidden debts, the mismanaged contracts, the air grew thick. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's hands shook slightly, betraying her composed facade. And Tyler, well, he finally looked uncertain, for the first time in years. What are you implying? My dad snapped. We've handled everything responsibly. I leveled my gaze. I've seen the books. I know what's really going on. You've been hiding debts, redirecting profits, and leaving Tyler to manage a house of cards. Silence. Tyler's grin faltered. My mom looked like she might cry. My father's eyes flashed with anger. But beneath that, I saw a flicker of fear. Then Tyler, trying to save face, laughed nervously. You're exaggerating. You always do that, making mountains out of molehills. I'm not exaggerating, I said, and I'm not here to humiliate anyone. But I won't stand by and let you destroy the business I helped build, or let Tyler get hurt in the process. The confrontation escalated quickly. Voices rose, accusations flew, and for a moment, it felt like every betrayal, every lie, every dismissal from the past 2 years was exploding in the room. My dad threatened legal action if I revealed anything. My mom tried to mediate, but her words sounded hollow. Tyler, overwhelmed, stomped off, slamming the door behind him. After the dust settled, I realized something crucial. The war wasn't just about money or power anymore. It was about truth, integrity, and survival. I had put myself on the line, risking not just the business, but family bonds that might never be repaired. And yet, in that moment, I felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't playing by their rules. Later that night, Alex and I sat in the test kitchen, going over strategies for the grand opening. That was intense, Alex said, rubbing his temples. But you held your ground, and you've shaken them. I nodded, staring at the faint glow of the city outside the window. I just hope I didn't break more than I fixed. And I knew, deep down, that the coming weeks would test every ounce of my patience, intelligence, and courage. Because in this battle, even a small mistake could cost me everything. The bakery, my reputation, and perhaps even the last shred of trust with my family. The grand opening of our bakery was supposed to be a triumph, a testament to hard work, honesty, and creativity. But as soon as the doors opened, I realized just how messy victory could be. Crowds poured in, social media buzzed, and loyal customers from my parents' chain quietly slipped into our line. It was exhilarating but also terrifying. Every glance from a familiar face, every whispered conversation about the bakery war, reminded me that this wasn't just business anymore. Meanwhile, Tyler and my parents scrambled to respond. They launched marketing campaigns, offered discounts, and tried to undermine us publicly. Tyler, in his desperation, made several mistakes, poor decisions that cost them credibility. Watching it unfold, I felt a mix of vindication and unease. I hadn't set out to humiliate anyone. But the truth was, their mismanagement had set the stage for our success. Then came the confrontation I hadn't anticipated. My mom called me late one evening. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. "I don't know how to apologize. We underestimated you. I see now how much you've done, and how much you've sacrificed." I was speechless. Part of me wanted to hug her, to forgive, to feel some of the familial warmth I had been missing. But another part, the part that had carried the weight of betrayal, hesitated. Trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight, and I wasn't sure I even wanted it back the way it had been. Tyler, on the other hand, didn't reach out. I heard through mutual friends that he had quietly resigned from his position, leaving my parents to handle the fallout of their decisions. Watching him retreat, I realized that victory wasn't about defeating him. It was about proving to myself that dedication, skill, and integrity mattered more than nepotism or favoritism. Yet the consequences were not all positive. Some of our own staff had been caught in the crossfire, relationships were strained, and Alex and I were exhausted. I had achieved what I set out to do, but at a cost. Every victory was tinged with guilt, every success shadowed by the broken bonds left in its wake. Standing in the kitchen late that night, watching the lights of the city reflect in the window, I realized the truth. The war for the bakery was over, but the battles within my family, and within myself, were far from done. I had won professionally, but emotionally, the wounds were still fresh, and forgiveness, if it came, would be a journey, not an instant reward. And as I locked up and stepped outside, I knew one thing for certain. I had become the person I always wanted to be, resilient, principled, and unyielding. But the question remained, lingering in the quiet night air. Am I the asshole for standing my ground? Months had passed since the grand opening, and the dust of conflict finally began to settle. Our bakery had not only survived but thrived. Loyal customers kept coming, new clients discovered our creations, and for the first time in years, I felt the quiet satisfaction of building something meaningful on my own terms. Alex and I had become a solid team, sharing both the victories and the exhausting challenges of running a business from the ground up. My parents, meanwhile, were forced to face the consequences of their own decisions. The hidden debts and mismanaged contracts came to light in ways they could not control, and Tyler, finally realizing how unprepared he had been, retreated from the business world entirely. It wasn't vindictive, it was justice, silent but inevitable. And yet, as much as I had proven myself, I couldn't ignore the lingering tension that remained with my family. I had chosen to fight with integrity, to avoid sabotage and dishonesty, but the battle had left scars. My relationship with my parents was cautious, polite at best, and fraught with memories of betrayal and disappointment. Tyler had become distant, the sibling I once trusted now a stranger shaped by circumstance and poor guidance. And Alex, my unwavering ally, reminded me constantly that even the strongest victories carry weight, that success is never free of cost. Sitting in the empty kitchen one evening, cleaning up after a long day, I reflected on everything that had happened. I had learned that family isn't always fair, that loyalty can be overlooked, and that sometimes, the people you love most are the ones who hurt you deepest. Yet I had also discovered my own strength, resilience, and ability to stand for what I believed in. And now I ask you, strangers on the internet, was I wrong to challenge my parents, to compete against them, and to carve out my own path despite everything? Was I the asshole for pursuing my dream, even if it meant shaking the foundation of my family? Or was I simply trying to reclaim the life I had built with my own hands, the respect I had earned, and the dignity that had been denied to me? Because in the end, winning isn't about defeating others. It's about staying true to yourself, even when everyone around you doubts you.